Welcome to the Nonprofit Podcast Network. Our purpose and passion are simple: to highlight the incredible nonprofits that make our communities stronger. Each episode is a chance for these organizations to tell their story in their words, sharing not just what they do, but why it matters to the people they serve, to their supporters, and to all of us who believe in the power of community. Through podcasting, we hope to amplify their voices, inspire connection, and give them one more tool to impact the hearts of donors, partners, and neighbors alike. This work is made possible through the generous support of our incredible partners: Cap Trust, offering fiduciary advice for endowments and foundations; Western Health Advantage, a local not-for-profit health plan that believes healthcare is more than coverage. It's about caring. CORE, executive leadership and comprehensive support services. They work in it so you can work on it. And Five Star Bank, a local, trusted advisor to community nonprofits for over 25 years. This episode is powered by SMUD, Sacramento Municipal Utility District's Shine Awards program benefiting nonprofits for energy efficiency. Apply today. The work we get to do leveraging the power of podcasting to help nonprofit organizations get seen and heard is never dull and never redundant. This episode, we're featuring an organization whose work sits at the center of so many other issues we talk about on this program: family stability, workforce participation, early childhood development, economic pressure, and the everyday challenges parents face just trying to make life work. I'm speaking with Catalyst Community's Heather Slimp, Director, and Heather Della Ripa, Senior Manager, an organization that has been serving families and childcare providers for decades by helping parents find and access quality childcare, supporting providers with resources and professional growth, and stepping into the practical needs of families with programs that can make an immediate difference. And that's the real story here. Childcare is not just a family issue. It's a workforce issue. It's an education issue. It's an economic issue. And for many families, it's the difference between being able to work, being able to go to school, being able to keep moving forward, or being forced to choose between responsibilities no family should have to choose between. Catalyst Community is doing the kind of behind-the-scenes work that strengthens the whole community, connecting families to resources, helping providers succeed, and making sure children have safe, supportive places to learn and grow. Heather Della Ripa, Heather Slimp, welcome to the Nonprofit Podcast Network.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks. We look forward to this.
And I'm happy to have you here because you had a bit of a hike to get to the studio today because we're talking about an agency that primarily services El Dorado and Alpine counties.
Mm-hmm.
So I know Heather Della Ripa, you came from Tahoe today.
I sure did.
Well,
Drove all the way down beautiful Highway 50.
You are the furthest drive we've had anybody come to the studio in our couple of years of existence. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
We did have a flight from New York where somebody came in, but they drove up from Sacramento. So we're not going to count that.
Yeah.
Catalyst Community is not a newcomer to the nonprofit scene. And I would suspect that those who are familiar or have used the services over the course of your tenure, which was 1976, if I'm not mistaken, when the agency was founded, are very familiar. If you could tell us a little bit about the scope of service, what you provide, and how the counties rely on you, I think it would really help the audience understand a little bit more about what Catalyst Communities are.
Oh, great. Yeah. Happy to talk a little bit more about community.
And this would be Heather Slimp who's speaking.
Yes, Heather Slimp. So at Community, really our core is connecting families with essential resources from vouchers. So we refer to as vouchers as payments for childcare, to finding quality childcare providers. We have a diaper bank, school supplies, car seats, and essential support services for families related to childcare is really what we are known for within the county.
Do you also work with the providers, the child care providers, so that
Absolutely.
the families and the providers?
Yes. Yeah. You want to
Yes,
speak to that a little
we
bit?
do. We serve
Mhm.
families and child
The other
care
Heather.
providers both.
We're going to have fun with these two Heathers throughout the conversation, right?
So we are working basically in an overarching sense to serve the need of childcare quality, access, and affordability. So if you think of it in those terms, we have to serve all aspects of a child's universe. So it would be the family, the child care provider, and the child themselves. And so we have different pieces of our programs that do all three of those things.
Let's walk through those programs a bit, if you could. Let's identify what the programs are for the benefit of the listener.
Okay, great. Well, we have subsidized childcare, which is the childcare payment portion, the voucher that Heather S. was referring to. And that is, generally speaking, an income qualifying program. Families typically have to meet income requirements to participate in that.
Meaning there's a threshold of income.
Correct.
Low income, probably, that caps.
It does.
That's
Okay.
absolutely right. In fact, it's 85% of the state median income for the family size. So that is the maximum that somebody can be earning and still participating in that program if their eligibility is based on income. There's other ways they might receive eligibility for subsidized childcare, and that's generally if they're a foster parent caring for someone that's not their own biological child, or if they're a family that's participating in child welfare services. Sometimes they're referred to have childcare as part of that key component to keep the family together. So that's our subsidy piece. And then we have the wide-ranging aspects of what resource and referral does. And so when we say resource and referral, or even R&R, it's really confusing of what that actually means. So
we definitely have an image of what R&R is typically,
Yes,
but in your case, it's very different.
Yes, it is. And so what that is it's the broad support for families and childcare providers. So it's helping families find childcare. And we can provide curated lists. So we'll talk to the family and say, what region do you live in? What are you looking for? Program philosophy, hours, days of the week, maybe even do they have expertise caring for special needs children? So those are the curated lists that we can provide. That service is open to anybody in El Dorado and Alpine County, regardless of income. And in fact, they don't have to reside in those counties to get that service. They could be coming to Tahoe to ski and they need a drop-in childcare. We could provide a curated list for that. That used to happen a lot. It doesn't happen so much anymore. I'm afraid people are going other routes for finding their services. So it's really important that we remind people that we know who's been cleared, who's safe, and who has had a background check before they bring that person into their child's life. So that's our main component of resource and referral. And then we do some provider training. And that's part of the mission, the funding that we currently have, where we can provide health and safety training, CPR trainings for licensed providers. We can help them learn how to become a licensed child care provider. And then once they're in that, they can get better with some of our classes and some of our supports that we provide. And we also help the friends, family members, and neighbors, which are doing sort of more informal child care. We help them understand some pieces of child development that they may not have, and we support them along that journey as well.
I'm going to ask a question that I'm sure is in the back of listeners' minds as well. We think of Tahoe as being a fairly wealthy community. I mean, it's ski resorts, it's big homes, vacation homes, it's the lake and just the expanse of what it all is, casinos. I don't think a lot of people recognize that while that's partly true, there's an entire service industry
Absolutely.
that is really substandard in terms of income. And tell us a little bit about that. What is the demand on the agency in the region?
I'll let you speak to that as a resident of Tahoe.
I can do that. So our public school kiddos are more than 50% free and reduced lunch. So that gives you right there, you know, that the image of Tahoe that you have.
Repeat that again, because that's
true.
A big number.
Yeah. So in our public schools in Tahoe, in the South Lake Tahoe region, let me be specific to where we serve, more than 50% of those kiddos receive free and reduced lunch. So we're not talking high income kiddos for the most part. And a lot of their parents are in the service industry, like you indicated. So they need specialized childcare, things that are evening, weekend, super flexible. So that's where we can come in with helping them to find the right fit. And if they're participating with our childcare subsidy program, we can help to pay for that childcare arrangement, whatever they end up choosing.
And the other thing I think people don't realize is El Dorado is east-west.
That's right.
Mhm.
So it's a big county from Tahoe, as we know, all the way down to
El Dorado Hills.
Yeah, the border of
Mhm.
Folsom, which is then El Dorado Hills, which is part of the greater Sacramento region.
Mhm.
And you serve both.
We do. So we have an office in South Lake Tahoe, an office in Cameron Park. So we are able to support families on the eastern and western slope. And then we also have an office in Alpine County. It's our small county.
Yeah, what would we know in terms of cities or resorts in Alpine?
Well, there's Kirkwood Resort.
Okay.
People might think of that one if they're skiers. And then there's Markleyville. And
Mhm.
then there's a mountain range. And then you have Bear Valley. The mountain range makes it really hard to access the other half of Alpine County almost half of the year. They just opened the road and we didn't even have a big winter. So
Right.
that highlights that for you.
Mhm.
Yeah, I know that area well because I'm a cyclist and we ride up in there
Right.
Mhm.
often.
Did you do the death ride at some
I've
point?
actually done it twice. Yes, thank you.
The reason it's called that.
Yes, there absolutely is. I did the old route and the new route. So I did the last of the old, the second of the new. I couldn't make it the date of the, the first time they did it. But I think that gives us some scope of the geography that you're covering. It's big. And for those of us who think Kirkwood, it's, oh my gosh, that's way south in the Sierras for our region. If you're going to go skiing in Kirkwood, all the way down to, El Dorado Hills. So it's a huge swath of territory, number one,
Right.
but also to think, again, many people don't recognize just because we see the image of the big houses and the community as it is,
Mhm.
there's a whole subset of people and families that service those communities in a variety of different ways. And sometimes they need help
Mhm.
and they need the assistance. Tell us about the most popular programs, or if there is, or are they all kind of equal? Where do you see the greatest demand?
So our greatest demand currently would be our subsidy program. We have, I don't want to say hundreds, but we serve about over 300 people, 300 families, I would say. Sorry, this we need
We'll
to
edit.
cut.
This is I can see it. Yeah, don't we'll
Okay.
fix it.
Yeah, right now, because we're enrolling, we're at like
We're enrolling.
5-ish.
5-ish. Okay.
Yeah.
I think I was mixing up our wait list as well.
We had to address that too. That's
okay.
important.
Mm-hmm. So we currently have over 500 families being served with our subsidy programs, receiving vouchers to afford childcare within the county, and then we have close to over 300 children on the waiting list, waiting to receive a voucher to be able to find childcare or to afford childcare. And then our second most popular program is our referral program, as Heather D was speaking to, of being able to contact us to find quality childcare for their children. Because one thing that we do want to emphasize is that our resource and referral part, there's no fee for that service. So any family can reach out to us to find a child care provider at no cost to them. So I would say those are our biggest two. And kind of as we were speaking prior to starting, is that we definitely see what we are able to provide when we're coloring inside the lines. So it is our voucher program and is our resource and referral program. Over the years, we have expanded our diaper bank, and we have also expanded our resource closet, our essential needs closet. And those are resources that we are definitely seeing a high demand for. However, we are just needing increased funding for to be able to continue that because there is such a high need.
So diaper bank, it is what I assume
That's
it is.
exactly what
You
would think.
can
And
drive by and pick up diapers.
yeah, that
Mhm.
one isn't even funded by the state. That is all donation and fundraising based. So we've done a lot of creative grant writing and basically begging over the years to help
Sure.
supply that. And we've reached almost 200 a month on big months where we have 200 kiddos getting diapers through our program. And these are not big package diapers. They're just meant to get you through to the first of the month when you might have more money in your checking account.
That's still a lot of diapers.
Yeah.
And basic needs. I would imagine that's just some of the food necessities, baby food, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So we have a variety of food, baby food, clothes. Actually, our resource closet has from infant clothes all the way up to adults. Yeah, there's a variety of materials now in our
hygiene
resource
supplies.
Okay.
Anything you would think of as a basic need that maybe you commonly would just go pick it up if you needed it, but if you're running out of money at the end of the month, you need some help getting those things in the house.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about the people that you can't say the word, collaboratively work with, the other organizations, because I can imagine it's pretty significant.
So actually, there is a lot of variety in that. We work, of course, closely with El Dorado and Alpine County and those county entities, County Office of Education, Health and Human Services. We work with the health care providers in the region. So Marshall Hospital, Barton Hospital, they've been really helpful both in referring clients over to us as well as supporting us in different ways. And we also collaborate a lot with First Five El Dorado, First Five Alpine, and of course our childcare providers. Other nonprofits like Aspire Kids and the El Dorado Community Foundation has been a huge support. They are actually the ones that helped us kick off the original version of our Healthy Bottom Line diaper bank. So I always want to give them props because they're the reason we got to start that in 2010, actually. And we also collaborate with the community colleges locally and our recreation and community centers. So we're just all over the place.
Yeah, I can imagine the integration just on observation. If somebody sees a family in need, they can refer back to your R&R.
Right.
You know, if they aren't aware, for those people who are, which is why we do what we do, is to make sure that people are aware and they understand that these opportunities exist. And the El Dorado Community Foundation is awesome. And, you know, Chris Ringnes and Amy Poole, we've had on with various episodes. And the organizations that service those communities, I can see other connections that maybe we'll talk about afterwards that could make some sense for you.
Great.
Yeah. None of this happens without funding. Everything
Very true.
costs in some way, shape, or form. And you mentioned a couple of times the state. Tell us a little bit about how you're funded.
So we are primarily funded through state contracts through CDSS with our alternative payment program. So that is what we like to call through as pass-through funding that supports our voucher program for families. So that contract allows us to provide it. It is passed through and then covers administrative costs. We also have state contracts through the CalWorks program serving families participating in CalWorks stage 1, 2, and 3, as well as what is known as the Bridge program that supports, as Heather D was speaking to prior, supporting families with foster children to be able to have childcare for those children. And then we also have our resource and referral contracts. Those provide funding to be able to offer resource and referral, as I said, with no cost to families, as well as provide the training to providers to ensure that there are quality programs. So those are one of our main state contracts. And then working with community partners.
The hard
This
is the hard
That's the
work.
hard work. Exactly. Yes. To get grant funding. So we're able to provide more programs outside of the restrictions within the state. So our CalWorks contracts, our AP contracts, those are very strict on what that funding is available for, because that essentially is just to provide vouchers to families. Our R&R contracts also have very much state or stricter guidelines on what is able to be allowed to be spent to provide those services. So, as Heather D had said, our diaper bank is Healthy Bottom Line diaper bank is solely, but it specifically says we're not allowed to purchase diapers with any of our state contracts. So we use that with the grant funding. The other program that I forgot to mention that is one of our most popular is our Kids Expo. So we do a Kids Expo Placerville and a Kids Expo Tahoe, which brings in all of the local community providers. We have the library, El Dorado County Library, Office of Education, childcare providers, tumbling gyms, quite a few different resources. So families can learn about all the family and child related services that are available to them in the county. And that is completely funded by donations and sponsorships to hold the event. So, we need to color inside the lines through our state contracts. And then we are continuing to search for donations, sponsorships, grants to be able to just provide more.
And those two events, they take place at fixed times each year, correct?
Yes. So we typically have Kids Expo Placerville the end of April, and then Kids Expo Tahoe the end of May.
Okay.
So hopefully the snow is melted.
Fresh off.
Yes.
Yeah, as we speak, we're recording this in early June. So how did it go?
It was great.
It was wonderful.
It was the
Good.
largest one we've ever had.
Congratulations.
And the weather held out for us. It was just a really excellent, fun day. And that was thanks to our partnership actually with Lake Tahoe Community College. They gave us the location for free, which made it possible for us to just bring in more vendors that maybe couldn't afford to rent a booth space. So that was huge.
Do you have an attendance number, a guesstimate?
It ranges. I've heard everything from 350 up to 700. So I think there's a few folks that are kind of not so great at math necessarily, but I would say we could land safely at 500.
Okay.
For Tahoe.
Yes, for Tahoe.
And then Placerville, we're assuming almost up to 1,000.
I think so. Yeah. Placerville is a larger event and it just pulls a lot of different places.
That's great to hear. Yeah, that is really great to hear, especially to hear that the engagement means there's an awareness.
Yes.
And there's a need, and you're able to fulfill and support. How many people do you employ?
I'm going to answer this.
Catalyst Community in El Dorado and Alpine counties has about 19 employees altogether, but because we have some people that come in from the regional offices. So we have some supporting staff. Like we have a business analyst, for example, that works in Sacramento and also in Cameron Park and Tahoe. He kind of roams, if you will. So yeah, we're a small group, but we do a lot with what we end up doing.
Yes, you do. And I'm just thinking the mileage on some of those cars is extreme in travel. Just again, because of your geography and the difficulty in getting point A to point B from wherever you might be, point A or point B. In terms of the future look, I mean, we're seeing a greater demand. And let me ask you, do you have a number, maybe a percentage of what you've seen from X year to X year, whether it was last year or the last 5 years, in terms of demand? For example, we've seen our food banks, our local food banks and food closets astronomically grow in service to the community. In some cases, double, triple since the pandemic. What are you seeing from the standpoint of childcare and childcare services?
Do you want to take this one?
Go ahead.
Okay.
The good news is we know what Heather's going to answer, right?
Yes.
Well, we have seen absolutely an increased demand. It's interesting because what we're seeing within that, not only is there more people needing childcare, they're needing those flexible schedules, those non-traditional hours. So what we're seeing is more informal care, the family, friends, and neighbors that can watch the child on the overnight shift, or they can do any day, any time if mom or dad is working a very, very unset schedule. Childcare demand's going up for sure. And I would also say that demand on our basic needs products and supplies is going up as well. It could be a combination of the economy, and it could be also that the word is getting out. I think it's a little of both of those things.
And sadly, we wish that wasn't the case, but we need to support these families. We'll be back to continue the conversation with two Heathers about Catalyst Community and Childcare following these messages from those who help us share these incredible stories.
I'm James Beckwith, President and CEO of Five Star Bank. We're dedicated to supporting nonprofit organizations who advocate for the strength, resilience, and vitality of those they serve. When nonprofit organizations thrive, our community does too. By supporting the Nonprofit Podcast Network, Five Star Bank is amplifying the voices and meaningful impact of our nonprofit community. We're Five Star Bank, a trusted nonprofit partner. How can we help you?
We are really excited to be part of the family and contribute to the work that you all are doing. CORE provides fractional and interim executive services, along with comprehensive back office solutions that go into our client sites and do the work to give them the capacity they need in order to move through transitions, whether that's planned or unplanned. Or companies also work with our accounting and finance, back office solutions, human resources, technology, and administration. The reason why our back office solutions add value is because we save them time and money, anywhere from 20 to 30% of what they would spend on that back office solution. We work in it so they can actually work on it. CXORE.com and contact me directly at DTEAT@CXORE.com.
If you're interested in learning more about how CORE may help your organization, visit CXORE.com.
Hello, this is Scott Thomas with Cap Trust in our Sacramento office. I specialize in working with local nonprofits and associations. Annually, we survey private and public nonprofit organizations across the country to better understand challenges they see in today's environment. In our more recent survey, we heard concerns about proper board governance, mission-aligned investment, and how to implement alternative investments. If you would like a copy of the survey or to discuss your organization, look me up, Scott Thomas at captrust.com.
I'm thrilled to have Western Health Advantage partnering with us as they do so much to support so many nonprofit agencies in our community. As a truly local health plan, you'll find individual and family options, employer options, plans for CalPERS and Medicare Advantage. From medical services to pharmacy, health and wellness support, as well as behavioral health care, Western Health Advantage has a plan that fits what you need. As an employer, for profit or nonprofit business, individual or family, you can find more at westernhealth.com.
Make our communities bright with Smudge Shine Awards. Now through July 31st, your nonprofit can apply for a chance to receive funding for projects that improve and revitalize communities in our service area. We're seeking proposals that support zero carbon workforce development, affordability and community resiliency, economic development, and STEM education. Smudge Shine Awards are competitive and funds are limited. Submit your proposal by July 31st. Learn more at smud.org/shine.
If a donor interested party, somebody comes around and says, you know what, I live in the Tahoe area, I've watched it grow, I've been a beneficiary of everything that's going on. I love what you guys are doing. We want to support our kids and families. I'm going to write you a blank check if you give me a great story of what you're going to do with it. What would the big vision look like? What would change? What would be different? What do you think you would say?
There's a lot we could do with
Yes,
it.
there's a lot that we could do with it. I think, again, it would be expanding the services that we offer, because we know that there's, well, those who have children or work with children know that there is just so much involved with them, and that there is such a need there. So I think for me, it would be increasing our staff, because we know that there is so much work that is to be done and could be done, to expand our resource and referral programs, increase the amount of trainings that we're able to provide to our providers to ensure that, well, one, actually to increase the amount of childcare providers within the county. For example, Alpine County only has one licensed childcare provider in the entire county. So it's a true childcare desert. And then El Dorado County, as you said, is a larger county divided by a mountain. It is also very rural. And so when families are looking for childcare, they don't necessarily want to drive 20 miles, in any particular direction. If they're able to find a provider even closer to home, that would be best. So it would be expanding the amount of providers that we have in the county, and then just really ensuring that they feel supported by us to provide a high quality program. And the children and families are receiving the best services and getting the best care. So I know that is one aspect. You want to speak to
No, I
other ideas?
To just expand upon that, we have a really great brand new program that is called the Home CEO. And what that is it's training on business aspects of running your own family childcare business. We kicked it off last February, very first time. We had 4 participants that graduated, and what they gained from that was business skills. And, we're talking childcare people. They want to be with the kids, so they're not the paperwork or the accounting types typically. So this was their chance to really take some time away from the children. They dedicated 10 weeks of 3-hour sessions where they dove into making their business better. And the positive comments that we got after that, those folks are going to talk that up. And the next time we offer that in early spring, I think we'll have a waiting list, to be honest with you. So I would like to see funding go to expanding that and expanding the incentives that we can give providers when they come out of that from the other side, so that we can really make sure that they're launching very successful businesses and just continuing to do the passionate work that they do.
Well, like Home CEO, that has a great
It does.
descriptor to it. You can visualize what that looks like.
Absolutely. Because we really want to emphasize to those who are participating that they are running their own small business. And so the coursework included how to market, how to do accounting, writing a mission statement. So really, providing that support, so they just truly felt kind of empowered to move forward to establish their own small business at home.
And they know they're going to get the support through the organization.
Exactly.
To eliminate that waiting list.
Yes.
Now, you said roughly 200. Is that 200 children or 200 families?
It's closer to 300 children.
Oh,
yeah.
gosh.
And these are
Okay.
kiddos that need that funded childcare spots. So yes, building up the childcare supply and getting these childcare providers trained and ready to go and ready to take on those kiddos, that's huge. But we also need funding so that we can bring those kids into the funded programs, so mom and dad can keep working at their service industry jobs or whatever type of work that they're doing, and not have to pay what we all as parents know is the exorbitant cost of childcare.
Right. Back to reality. It's fun to think about that. What if money was no object? What is the greatest need today?
Childcare supply and quality. I mean, honestly, the dream is really the reality as well. That's the greatest need.
I mean, there's just not enough providers.
Not in El Dorado County. Yeah.
In Alpine County, like she said, there's just the one,
which is amazing to me.
We have,
I mean,
of
I
course,
cannot
a great
understand
network
it.
of friends and family members, but one licensed childcare center that is on the school campus, actually. So Alpine is a childcare desert in every way.
boy, it's so unfortunate for those families that are stuck somewhere in between, in the middle, where it may be a 20, 30-mile ride
Mm-hmm.
to get childcare just so they can work to support the family. Let me ask, because I know it is, we have these thresholds, and it's one of the challenges we spoke about in our prior conversation before the podcast. There's thresholds. And the good news is you're able to get supported to work, to grow, to get your family what it needs as you're employed. The good news is you get promoted.
Mm-hmm.
The bad news is you now cross the threshold, and it may only be $100 a week, a month, but it's nominal, and now you're out of the program.
Mm-hmm.
What sort of conversations take place when that happens? Because it's growth for the individual, growth for the family member, for the wage earner who's supporting the family, and we want to see them grow, but it may take another 2 or 3 years for them to get to the point where it's offsetting childcare. What do you see? What happens? What are the conversations that are taking place about that situation?
That's a complicated one.
Yes. So I think that there is an assumption that families would want to stay underneath the threshold to be able to continue services. However, the conversations that we have had with families, and we do have a really good story that Heather D's going to share about it, is that we're finding families are actually feel very empowered to be able to have used our program, gone through school, been able to work hours, maybe even longer hours, to be able to get to that promotion. And after getting to that point and no longer needing our services, feel like that this is just a really empowering feeling of no longer needing that financial support. So, if we're able to read a quote from a family,
Please, yes.
of
We kind of
this happening.
rolled into that question a little bit differently, because what happens is people don't realize, I want to appropriately phrase this, some people hold back on their own professional growth
That's true.
because it would be so detrimental that they wouldn't have the ability to care for their child. And that's so heartbreaking
It really is.
Mhm.
when they're there. And the decision has to come to say, at this level, at this threshold, when in fact they could progress.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't know how quickly it would go after that to get them to where it offsets childcare, but somewhere in there, it seems like there's an opportunity, and I know it's a much bigger conversation, so we probably should just leave it at that, because we can talk forever about it, to where maybe it's a tiered situation, to where, okay, you get to here, we can support this, you get to here, we can support this, you get to here, we're done, you're good. Oops.
They do that to a certain extent. So, for example, while we're enrolling off our waiting list, most of the time people come in at really, really low incomes. For example, if they enter at 10% of the state median income, that's just a little over $1,000 a month for a family of 4. Just pause for a minute and try to think about paying for groceries and everything else with that level of income. So that's where they can typically enter, around that range, but they can leave, and they do leave, at 85% of the state median income for their family size. So that, again, for this family of 4 is just right around $9,000 a month, which is a huge difference in what you can provide for your child, and the professional, growth that you've been able to attain at that point. So families are able to, when we reveal that ceiling, not like it's a grand reveal, but we share that ceiling with them when we're enrolling them. And part of the reason that we do that is, yes, they know that threshold, but also they see how big that threshold actually is, because they may not realize it when they're coming in at the very low income side of things. So this parent that recently left our program, she entered our services after having left a domestic violence situation, and she was actually in supported housing where, her address was kept confidential. I mean, it was a really serious situation. And she was finishing school. So she was getting her bachelor's degree, and we were supporting her through that. And then she became pretty successful in what she did. So here's what she has to say. This is her basically, I don't need you anymore letter to us. Catalyst helped my family completely turn our life around over the 4 years in which we were enrolled. I was able to more than double my income over the years thanks to their assistance with childcare and after-school programs. I feel as though we as a society only hear about complaints about vital programs which aim to help the working class. We don't hear enough about the positive impact that these programs have. Without Catalyst, I would not have been able to find work and create availability for a job that supports us in a comfortable way. The truth is, Catalyst was literally the catalyzing factor for my family. The program and its wonderful staff gave us the tools we needed for me to break the glass ceiling as a single working mom. When I finally made the call to leave the program, I started crying out of sheer gratitude and relief. To finally feel comfortable paying for my own childcare is a state of mind I never thought possible. I couldn't be more grateful to Catalyst community. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for all you've done for me and my family. I hope that you continue the amazing work that you do so that other families can turn their lives around too.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And that's the epitome of what we hope through the program. That's a classic, perfect example.
Mm-hmm.
And I would imagine there's many of those. Not everybody is fluent and takes the time to do it, but certainly they're appreciative to get off the program because they see that as a support and subsidy that they would prefer not to have to exercise.
Mm-hmm.
That's absolutely true.
Yep.
Yeah, that is, what a great example.
Yeah. It was, because she had first called the subsidy counselor this parent had called the subsidy counselor she was working for and told her, and they were both in tears of just gratitude. And then she sent us that wonderful letter, and the subsidy counselor shared it with the whole team. And oh my gosh, it just blew us all away when we received it.
Well, and there's the evidence of impact. That's we all want that. We want to see, okay, we know we're doing good. We always don't hear about it. And that's understandable. People have lives and they're busy and they're doing so many things, especially since you deal with families and children. We know
life gets busy.
The time consumption a child can be, but to get the recognition and say, hey, this is what this has allowed me to do, to double my income. Back to your point of, X percent to 85%, she's now in a position where she'll probably be a donor at some point. A grateful participant in the program that says, hey, I get it. I was a part of it. And those are the ideal situations.
So true. Yep. That's why we get up in the morning and do what we do.
Yep.
Exactly. So we're going to take a deviation here. We're going to go beyond the mission for a second.
Okay.
Because we want to learn a little bit about you, Heathers, in your lives, because you absorb this all day long. And we know that anybody in nonprofit leadership is really engaged in that mission and the purpose, and it's with you all the time. You can't get away from it. You see a kid, you can't help but think about your program. So it's always in your head and on your shoulders. Let's start with Heather S.
Okay.
And it's just a few rapid fire questions to get to know you a little bit better.
All right.
For the audience. And how about early bird or night owl?
Oh gosh, I've started as an early bird. My husband has turned me into a night owl. Actually, also, I think having kids turned me into a night owl because that's when I get to have my own time.
How many kids do you have?
I have 8-year-old twins, boy and girl twins.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
That keeps you busy.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. So, yeah, we are in peak childhood right now.
So this is a great question for you.
Okay.
Coffee or tea?
Oh, coffee.
Okay.
Multiple coffees.
Go-to comfort food.
Oh, gosh. Go-to comfort food. Probably sushi. I will never turn down eating sushi. I just love it.
If you were going to
I don't
binge,
think of it as a comfort food, though.
But with your sushi, if you're going to binge watch something on TV, what would it be?
Oh my gosh. I feel like I always come back to the show Parks and Rec, probably because I started in recreation. Um, I think that would be kind of the big one for me.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then what would people be surprised to learn about you? Hidden talent, something your hobby?
Gosh. I feel like I'm kind of an open book. I don't know if anyone would really be surprised about. I can't think
Okay,
of
let's go this way.
anything.
If you weren't doing the work you're doing, what would you be doing?
Oh gosh. Well, I don't think that anyone would be surprised about this. I started in recreation and in summer camps, and so it would be running a sleepaway summer camp.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you kind of get some of that even with what you're doing
I do.
today.
Yes, I do. Yeah. So I've always been drawn to working with children. And so you started out in the rec world, but was very early on drawn to the childcare world. So I absolutely love what I'm doing, and yeah, just definitely feel a connection to it.
Okay, your turn, Heather D. Favorite color?
Blue.
First car?
A 1980 Dodge St. Regis.
So
Half the people are not going to know what a St. Regis is. That's a,
You could think of it as those K cars from the 80s
Right.
movies. Yeah, it looked like an old cop car.
favorite place for a vacation?
Anywhere with a beach.
Elevator or stairs?
Stairs.
Same question I asked other Heather. What would people be surprised to learn about you?
That's a tough one. Maybe that I always thought I would be a fiction writer.
There you go.
There you go.
I am not one.
No, because it's not fiction. It's true. How about guilty pleasure?
Guilty pleasure is probably a glass of wine.
Okay. And children?
I have 2 boys. One is graduating high school next week, and he's 18 already. And the other is 14, and he's thick in the middle of baseball season.
Good for you. Good for you. Well, if somebody is interested in supporting the organization,
Mhm.
what's the best way to learn more? Where should they go? Where would we direct them?
So it's certainly our website, catalystcom.org.
Okay, we'll put that in the show notes too, so they can.
Perfect, because that will have our contact information as well. And then on social media, Catalyst, I believe our handle is just Catalyst Community.
Yeah, it's nothing.
We'll put that in the show notes too. Yeah, yeah. Good. Well, we know and recognize families and children are the future of what we're doing, and the better prepared they are, the better we're going to be as a society. And helping families in need with care, consideration, respect, and dignity, which is such a big element of this.
Mm-hmm.
It really gives them the opportunity to focus on the real issues, and that's the well-being of their kids.
Yep.
Not to mention their own personal growth.
Mm-hmm.
For those families you serve in El Dorado and Alpine counties, thank you, Heathers, for what you do, but also what your team does. And we recognize that is a significant burden, across the board. Anytime it's families and children and people supporting them, just all the elements and all the organization. I mean, it takes a village. We hear it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And you are a core part of that village. So for you and your teams, thank you.
Thanks for having us
Yeah,
here.
thanks for having us here.
I wanted to mention real quick, if you really just want to donate directly, you can come to our offices and bring us diapers and formula. We will get those out the door.
I love it.
There you go.
Yeah.
And I'll put the addresses in the show notes as well. So it's easy for people who may not know where the opportunity is there. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Let's go make something better.
Great.
Great.
This episode has been powered by SMUD, Sacramento Municipal Utility District's Shine Awards program benefiting nonprofits for energy efficiency. Apply today. Thank you for listening to the Nonprofit Podcast Network. We hope today's episode inspired you and gave you a deeper look into the work of our local nonprofits. If you believe in our mission to amplify their voices, please take a moment to leave us a positive review and share this episode with a friend. It helps more people discover the incredible work happening in our community. And don't miss future episodes. Subscribe to our weekly updates and monthly newsletter at nonprofpod.com. And if you're part of a nonprofit that would like to be featured, we'd love to hear from you. Just visit the Guests tab on our website. The Nonprofit Podcast Network is recorded and produced at Hear Me Now Studio with generous support from our outstanding partners. CapTrust, fiduciary advice for endowments and foundations, online at captrust.com. Western Health Advantage, local care with community impact. Find the plan that fits at westernhealth.com. CORE, executive leadership and comprehensive support services. Visit cxore.com. And 5 Star Bank, a local trusted advisor to community nonprofits for over 25 years. 5starbank.com.